Okay. So what I wanted to talk about was how information gets relayed in this game. There's three ways that I can think of. There's the help files, right? Very cut and dry. There's word of mouth, meaning if somebody asks a question in a public channel, then there's another individual that tends to answer more often than not. And then there's something that has gone a little under the radar, which is hints. I'd forgotten about them myself. But for those that don't know, when you're config plus hint, you get a random array of them ever so often. Now, I've documented like 30 of them, but there's probably more. But I think these are great. Like the little tidbits of information that you get, you would never find out, right? Unless you had them on, right? However, the issue that I think they end up having is that at some point during your gameplay, you turn them off, right? You turn them off for whatever reason that may be, whether that be because it's too spammy, because you think you've seen them all, because you think you're already a pro, you don't need hints, which are all valid reasons for sure. But because you turn them off, you deprive yourself from potential information that you would receive. And on a new player, I think those are very important to get. Now, I wanted to expand on that idea, however, because I think they're great, but the delivery of the information isn't always as useful. The problem that it has is that, let's say that there's 50 of them, you get them at random. So sometimes you get one and then the same one right after that. So there's repetition. It's not in a consecutive order, right? Which is also probably another reason why it gets disabled at some point. So I wanted to implement them into something that we already have. Like take, for example, when we die in Sonoria, and when we die and we go to Sonoria, rather, we're immediately resting, right? And if we don't stand, right, and we try to move, the game does prompt you to stand because you're resting. But perhaps it should also, if hints are on, tell you about help stand, right? Because you need hints. You need that extra bit of information to be delivered in a particular way, right? When you're trying to do something, but you cannot do it for some X or Y reason, whether because you're typing it poorly, whether because you physically can't do it, well, physically not, but electronically can't do it, right? So things like, for example, if you're trying to cast a spell, right, and they're trying to cast Galvanic Whip, but they're not using the quotes, that means that they're trying to cast Galvanic on something called Whip, right? Maybe the game can detect that because it'll say, well, that person ain't here, or that thing isn't here, or you can't do that, etc. Then it would say, well, you're trying to cast a spell, try using quotes, help cast, right? And so on and so forth. Like, there's a myriad of examples that I can give, but you get the gist, right? But the other way to implement bits of information that a player might need is to use this guy. Now, you all know him, the rope figure, the academy. Now, the rope figure has two things that he does, right? If you're level 20 or below, he casts Thoric's Blessing on you, which is great. And if you're lingering in his room, he feeds you and he quenches your thirst, right? Pretty cool. But that's it, right? That's his only function. Now, RP-wise, I think, from what I understand, he's supposed to be the guy that's in charge of the academy. I feel like if he's standing there, we should make use of him and have him relay information to players, especially new players, right? When you first come into the game as a new player, you have no idea what's happening, right? You don't know where you are. You don't know where to go, what to kill. You don't even know that you're naked because you don't know what garb is, right? You're not really looking at yourself. You go into this room and you don't know if what you're looking at is an item, a mob, a person, right? You don't know anything, right? And I feel like if we give the rope figure some dialogue and perhaps even a name, then it'd be easier for the player to get their bearings, right? Something along the lines of like, okay, you just came into the game, he looks at you, or you seem to be naked, why don't you go east, or I guess it would be east. That's gonna be hard for me because the camera is flipped, but if you go east and get some items, right, then you'll be better off. Okay, so they go east, they get some items, maybe they go somewhere else, right? But they have the option, right? I'm sure they want items in order to function as an individual in this game, so they'll go and get items, right? And then once they're done with that, maybe he tells them to go north and practice some skills, right? These are basic stuff. This is still part of the tutorial. It's not Sunless Sea, but it's still part of the tutorial, right? Because they have to come back to this place afterwards when they level up again, right? Maybe now that they've practiced some stuff, maybe he tells them to go west and go kill some stuff in the academy, right? Or maybe at the same time, he shows them this. Now this is something that I wanted to implement into the game. It's just a little bit of ASCII into the description of the room, right? Look bored, let's say, for example. And it's kind of self-explanatory, right? The player looks at it, well, the rope figure will let them know about it, right? They would look at the board and they would see messages about characters that are popular around Darkhaven. Like take Lauren, for example. Take the guy that's 2 north and east, whose name I can't remember offhand, who has a bit of training to give you, or some bits of information to give you, right? Maybe he's in there. Maybe the mayor is in there. Maybe you mentioned something about Posh here, which is the guy that sells recall scrolls in Market Street. Maybe you let them know that he has created something marvelous called a recall scroll, which is a really important bit of information that they never get around any part during their training, right? Like at no point do we let them know that there's a recall scroll. So they don't know that they can come back to Darkhaven, mainly because they don't even know what Darkhaven is, right? And lastly, spells. There's the guy up just above the rope figure in his shop who sells now potions that give you leveling spells, right? The things that you kind of get with Thoric's Blessing, but these stack as well, much like leveling spells from the bots, right? And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you don't even know that exists, because this was implemented later on, and we don't really visit that place anymore because we don't have to. We already know everything about the game. But new players do. They tend to like move around and explore, and I think it's important for them to know that the shop exists so that they can get spells. Otherwise, they run around and they don't even know that they can get sank. Actually, they can't get sank there. But you get the gist. They get leveling spells, they get sank and shattered refuge. Kudos to whoever thought of that, by the way. But this is like the idea, right? Relaying information to players so that they can get their bearings and function as a player in this game. I think that's it. That's my rant.